If, like me, you were born in the 1960s, then you may remember the passenger trains of the Trinidad Government Railways. However, those who lived in the southern part of the island will surely remember carony trains from the sugar industry well into the late 1990s, trundling between Barrapore and St. Madeleine. Today, there are no longer any railways in Trinidad. Apart from a few ghostly reminders of what once was, railways have now all but disappeared. I was born and raised in San Fernando at a time when the TGR was in its twilight years. It was this experience which kindled my lifelong passion for trains and railways. I often wonder what it would have been like if Trinidad had never abandoned its train service. Had the TGR been retained, today it would have no doubt provided a welcome relief to the hundreds of thousands of Trinidadians who face a frustrating daily commute in and out of Port of Spain. Railways in some form or the other existed in Trinidad for well over 150 years between 1839 and 1998, but most people today don't even know it. Britain invented the steam locomotive, a key technology that would eventually find its way to every corner of the globe, including Trinidad. The railways were to play a significant part in the early development of the island, but today, like the British Empire, trains in Trinidad exist only in the annals of history. Ironically, however, if you wanted to experience what it would be like to ride a train similar to one which ran in colonial Trinidad, then you would have to go to Britain or the United States of America. In 1973, I left for boarding school in England, where I discovered that interest in railways was an extremely popular hobby. The 1970s was a time when nostalgia for steam trains created a preservation movement that was to become a national phenomenon. Abandoned railways and steam locomotives were saved in their droves by an army of young enthusiasts all across the British Isles. Today there are over 536 miles of preserved or heritage railways and over 400 preserved locomotives operating in Britain. Railway heritage lines in the UK now carry about 7 million passengers every year and earn around £92 million. It is due to the dedication of railway preservationists that today it is still possible to find working examples of trains like the ones that once operated in Trinidad. In this video, we shall travel to several locations where railway equipment similar to that which once ran in Trinidad may still be found, either in working condition or in the process of being restored. Examples of Trinidad's industrial and passenger railways can still be experienced thanks to British and American rail enthusiasts. We begin our quest appropriately with a visit to the Middleton Railway in Leeds, Yorkshire, which is the location where so many Trinidad locomotives were built. In fact, the very first engine purchased by the Trinidad Government Railway, an 060 side tank locomotive named Marima of 1874, and the last locomotive purchased by the Caroni Sugar Company in 1976 are both Leeds-built Hunslet locomotives. The Middleton Railway in Leeds is a working railway museum where various examples of vintage industrial locomotives have been preserved, including the only surviving industrial steam locomotive which worked in Trinidad in the sugar industry, number 18 Picton, which once worked for the St. Madeleine Sugar Company in South Trinidad. The day of my visit to the Middleton Railway featured in this video was June 4, 2009, on the occasion of a very special homecoming for one industrial diesel locomotive of similar outline and lineage to the engines which operated in Caroni between 1956 and 1998. Hunslet built 158 locomotives of this type between 1955 and 1961. In Britain, they became known as the Class 5s under British Railways classification. In total, 69 units were sold to British Railways and the remaining 89 units to industrial customers both in the United Kingdom and overseas, including Tate & Lyle in Trinidad for the sugar industry. Trinidad received a total of 5 Class 5 locomotives between 1956 and 1957, all of which worked exclusively at Usine St. Madeleine, 5 miles to the east of San Fernando. These diesel engines displaced a number of steam locomotives, including number 18 Picton, which today can be found at the Middleton Railway. Number 18 was returned to Leeds from Trinidad in 2002 by David Monkton for restoration at the Middleton Railway, and today awaits patiently in the restoration queue. The original 5 Trinidad engines were D6, D7, D8 of 1956 and D9, D10 of 1957. These Hunslet locomotives operated around Usine St. Madeleine for over 42 years and brought down the final curtain on railways in Trinidad, having operated the very last trains on the island in 1998. There are now a total of 9 Class 5s in preservation, 4 in Trinidad, plus 4 ex-British Railways examples in the UK and 1 ex-industrial example. It is only possible to see working examples of this motive power today in the United Kingdom. The locomotive featured here is Hunslet engine D2578, built for British Railways in 1958, works number 5460. D2578 was withdrawn from British Railways in May of 1967 and abandoned at Thornton Shed. Like so many other engines, she was sold back to Hunslet at the end of 1967 for overhaul and resale. Following overhaul, she received a new works plate 6999 and was sold to H.P. Bulmers Limited of Hereford. Following 33 years of service at Bulmers, she was sold to the D2578 Locomotive Group, who fully restored her to working order by 2005. The engine today is housed at Morton Business Park, Herefordshire, where she returned shortly after her visit to Leeds in 2009. During my visit on June 4th to the Middleton Railway as a member of a photographic charter, I was able to experience D2578 in much the same way I once did on the Trinidad engines during the course of their duties in the now forgotten cane fields of the Naparimas. Thanks to the D2578 group for their work on this locomotive. Next, we fly across the Atlantic to the Florida Railroad Museum to find an example of the 44-ton General Electric locomotive.
Okay, here we have the 44-ton General Electric BO locomotive. This one is one that worked with the US Army Transport Corps. Actually, 11 of these engines were brought into Trinidad by the US Army Transport Corps, and this is a very good example of one that has been preserved. Now in Trinidad, 2 of the ones that originally came with the US Army Transport Corps were left in Trinidad, sold to the Trinidad Government Railway. They became number 52 and 53 of the Trinidad Government Railway. The Trinidad Government Railway liked them so much that after the US Army left Trinidad in 1949, all of their 11 engines were dispatched to all other parts of the world, but Trinidad bought 2 brand new engines, number 54 and number 55 of the Trinidad Government Railway. In 1961, they continued that trend by buying 5 additional engines from the New Haven and Hartford Railway. So in all, we ended up with 9 locomotives that were identical to this. And this is the first time I've seen one of these engines since I last saw them running in 1965, when they were running for the Trinidad Government Railway.
GE built 386 of these engines between 1940 and 1956. Trinidad was the only place in the world where this type of engine was used on mainline passenger trains. The late Fenwick Lord TGR engine driver gives us his experience with the 44-ton GEs.
On every unit, when we bought 52 and 52 from the base, I was the driver that get our steam engine driver familiar with the diesel. I was training them.
Right.
Then Goodridge, because when, as I told you, I used to take the workmen up on the base, drop them up, go to Caroni for the fuel,
Right.
take it back up there.
Right.
And 51 or 52 used to take it up, the tank, and carry it up further up on the base, because of the restricted area.
Yes.
Where the planes come in and they had the underground tank. Is what you're talking about war years ago.
Right, yes, of course.
The diesel had a low gauge and a power gauge. You start from here and as you use up energy and the weight, you need to travel full place to center. At the danger zone, you had a release on the gas. Let me put it this way, release. You ease up on the gas and don't go over to that because you're going to trip out.
Just on the second level here, bringing up the speed, heading south along the Florida Railroad Museum. This is a 44-ton Mobil General Electric engine, very similar to the ones that ran on the Trinidad Government Railway back in the 1940s that were brought in by the US Army. This particular example is a Navy locomotive, but it will do for us today because this is the only example that I've seen since 1965 when I watched the Trinidad Government Railway engines running into San Fernando. Now you see, if Trinidad had the foresight to keep some of its engines, today we could be doing the very same thing along the Rail Clara line and through the Tabaquí Tunnel. But instead of that, we scrapped our railways in 1968, and scenes such as this were lost forever. Looked a bit like this. So here we have it, the 44-ton General Electric BOBO locomotive.
Next, we visit the East Somerset Railway in Britain to take a look at a Hudswell-Clark diesel hydraulic 260 horsepower locomotive. This example is almost identical to Caroni engine D11, which once worked the cane fields of the Naparimas in South Trinidad. Originally, 8 of these engines, delivered in 2 batches of 4 each, were built by Hudswell-Clark for the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board in the 1960s. The first set, numbered 39 to 42, were all built in 1962. The second batch was built between 1965 and 66 and numbered 45 to 48. The second set differed very slightly from the first by the inclusion of roller bearing axle boxes and flame-proof electrics. The Mersey Docks and Harbour Board closed in 1973, and all 8 locos were sold and dispersed to various new owners, including number 42, which was exported to Trinidad in 1975 for Tate & Lyle, where it became Caroni number 11. In May of 2013, I visited the East Somerset Railway to meet up with the men who restored sister engine number 45 in the UK. This engine today represents the only working example from the original batch of 8 Mersey Docks and Harbour Board diesel engines.
So this could be us at Brecon Castle in Trinidad. Here I am on the East Somerset Railway. with, this could be D11, but here we have number 42, 45, and this could be number 42 like we have in Trinidad. So this could be us, guys. This is what we need to do.
My closing subject is perhaps the best example of a train which once operated in Trinidad, and one which may still be experienced today. This particular unit is the Wickham Class 109 diesel railcar, which appeared in Trinidad in 1961 and saw out the final years of the Trinidad Government Railways. First built in 1957 for British Railways by D. Wickham and Company of Ware in Hertfordshire, England, the Class 109 is a two-car diesel multiple unit. Two of these units came to Trinidad in 1961, numbers 50415 and 50419, ironically the first and last sets ever built respectively. The Wickham railcars entered traffic on British Railways in the autumn of 1957. Because only 5 were ever built, they soon became surplus to requirements, being regarded as non-standard designs. In September of 1961, British Railways sold 2 sets back to Wickham and Company, which reconditioned and sold both sets to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. This purchase may have been a last-ditch effort by the TGR to cut operating costs in the early 1960s. Both of the TGR Class 109s ran until closure in 1968 and for many years after stood awaiting a buyer at Port of Spain. This sale never materialized and both vehicles were eventually scrapped. The late Fenwick Lord, along with his friend and colleague, the late Aubrey Goodridge, were the first and last TGR engine drivers of the Wickhams in Trinidad. Mr. Lord told me the vehicles were locally known as the coach and gives us his first-hand account of driving the units.
A1 coach. Fenwick Matthias Lord engine driver, was the first Trinidad government railway engine driver who drove A1.
The Wickham diesel railcar.
Wickham diesel railcar.
To San Fernando, was it?
Yes, and a trial run.
So tell me about that.
Jackie tell you that when we were driving the coach, her father was driving 2 and I driving 1, and most of the time they crossing was 3 there together, and Jackie and them in the garage, no, look, number 1, and they're making a thing out of it.
We used to stand on the wall and look across the over the canal and see Daddy coming up. We know the train, know the time Daddy would have wherever Daddy was.
And he blew the horn as he went by?
Yeah. We know the time he was working. So.
On a brighter note, for which this video bears credence, it is still possible to see a living example of a Rail Class 109 in action today. This now unique unit, number 50416, was converted to a departmental service rail vehicle surviving in British Rail ownership until the 1980s. It was purchased by the Llangollen Railway Preservation Society and lovingly restored to full working order in 2004. Today this unit runs up and down the Society's line in North Wales, transporting enthusiasts and tourists during the summer season. I have made numerous memorable journeys on the Llangollen Railway in the Wickham railcars, experiencing what it would have been like in the 1960s riding the Trinidad diesel railcar. These railcars played a significant role in the final chapter of Trinidad's passenger rail history.
No, my partner Goodridge. they assigned us with the engineer in the workshop to mount it up, see all what was going on. And they gave us a pile of document, the whole layout of the car for us to study and read and read. Oh my God. I read, thinking that perhaps when they're ready to. Your father, this is a peculiar man, that's why he's so weird.
Tell me about it.
I'll tell you about it. No, we studied together, but he not talking about like when I could explain him in their talk, but see, if you see I make a mistake, he would say, so I said, oh yes, he missing out. No. He ain't forgetting that if I forget, he ain't forgetting. That's the kind of person he is. He ain't forgetting at all. But you know, I have to tell you, he don't talk to you about that. No, what's never talk, no? You know. But he knows his oaths. When he was leaving, they had to get together upstairs in Busby office, mechanical in the office. They didn't invite me because they know I didn't come out. And he told them, he said, this is the only place in Trinidad and Tobago that he hadn't trained the engine drivers. He said they could have trained themselves. No, I'll give you the details so you see why he says so?
Yes.
Because I didn't leave nothing not so unturned.
That's right, yes.
Because I asked him some question and he was marveled about never going to these other places they asked him.
You don't remember his name?
Man, they were fighting me, boy.
So you drove the last A1 in?
I drove the last A1 and packed it up. That was it.
Yeah.
December 68.